Hello, everybody, and welcome to Women's History. Well, welcome to International Women's Month. We have so many things to give to y'all. We have so many things that we want to present to y'all. So first, let me start by saying thank you all for just joining us today, and especially on International Women's Day, when we're going to highlight just all the amazing things that especially women of color, are all doing. But before we get to the main attraction, I like to just welcome y'all all to the All We Do Is Win, the 2 week software engineering series. We plan on highlighting a whole bunch of women. We plan on giving y'all just details of what a day is like in the life of these women and how, and help them share helpful hints about their journeys. So then again, greetings from the family. My name is Dominique. I'm the People Operations Manager of MMC, Mentor Me Collective. And I just want to say welcome all. And I'm very thankful that y'all are joining us for today. And we want to take you a moment, just take a moment and share, tag us when you're tuned in. Please tell a friend to tell a friend, as my lovely CEO will always say. And please, just come and have a good time. And today we plan on celebrating Women's History Month with some of the greatest Black women in tech right now. These women are doing the thing, and especially today being International Women's Day, we really want to make sure that we highlight and give y'all all a great show. But first, we want you to tell us a little about yourself in your own journey. Are you in school, in boot camp? Are you self-learning? Are you applying for your first role? Are you growing and glowing in your career? Please, in the comment section, just say, show us, tell us, talk to us. That's what we like to see. That's what we like to do. But before I go on to this, I want to take a moment to highlight something that we have coming up on Monday, March 21st. We want you to join us for a diversity recruiting event with Adobe Design. We want you to chime in for the diversity conversations and learn how they've been fostering diversity and inclusion in communities within a workspace. And we're doing it through LinkedIn and YouTube. Please bring your resume, be ready to shoot your shots, because you'll be able to directly speak with direct hiring managers in design. So we please want to make sure that you seize this opportunity. We do it all for y'all. But before we jump in, I want to tell you a little bit about the team. I want to tell you about the mentorship program that we have coming up. I want to tell you how to opt into our text reminders, as well as the Etsy shop, and finally, the Women's History giveaway that we're preparing for. And so this is just me and the team right now. We have our lovely CEO, the Miss Make It Happen herself. She does it for all of us in the community, and we so appreciate her, Miss Chanel Power. We have Jovan Cameron, our CEO, the lovely lady from the Long Island. Jovan also has a YouTube series where she highlights her journey in tech and what it was like for her first getting into tech and how she had to overcome, some of the basic obstacles like getting a laptop, really learning boot camps and all that. She has her own YouTube series. It'll be dropped in the link, and we hope that you take the time to, check it out, because there's really some amazing stuff in there. I've watched it and I was like, wow, I learned some stuff. And finally, you have me, Dominique G, head of people, executive administrator. Again, I'm here to make sure everyone looks good. So very happy that y'all are joining us today. And now, joining the team, we're currently looking for volunteers for a video editor, a social media manager, grant and sponsorship specialist, and an email support specialist. Please visit the link that we have below and select volunteer inquiry with Javon. I'm telling you, it's a hoot to work here. We love people. We love making sure people are growing in themselves and growing in the community. And we want to make sure we highlight y'all. Well, but before we get in further, someone talk about free career coaching. Just need something to look at your resume, a career pivoter? Please, we are offering free mentorship. That's coming up in Q3 of this year. We want you to go into our website, the mentormecollective.org, and we want you to go into mentorship and sign up, whether that's to become a mentee or a mentor. Trust me, this stuff, mentors in this space, is very important. It's something that we all need. It's something that we all love. And I hope that you take the time to really just shoot your shot in the program. It's helped me tremendously as I go through my own career pivot, and we want to make sure we extend that to all of you all as well. And I just said that. Opting into our text reminders, just text MMC to 866-901-1914, and it will always tell you when we go online for events or when anything is coming up, whether, it's the giveaways, whether it's the events. We always want to make sure that you're informed, that you have all the information at all times. Visit our Etsy shop. We have a lovely array of things. You can check it out. We have special promotions going on for the Mentor Me Collective. And we just really, and all our proceeds goes to helping out the first gen Black and Latinx folks to purchase devices to help jumpstart their career. I'm telling y'all, when it comes to just getting this equipment, it can be quite expensive, and we always want to make sure that we're highlighting and giving back to the community. So please, please go and buy our wares. Please help us. But what would be an MMC event without a MMC giveaway? That's right, folks. We having a giveaway right here, and to enter it is really so simple. We want you to attend all the session for 2 weeks, and bring a friend if you can. I know that seems like a long time, but trust me, we have some amazing women here who are really, really doing it big. We want you to grab your pen and paper because there will be a quiz towards the end of it. We want you to connect with us on social media platforms. And like I said, there is a quiz. So please make sure you're taking notes, not only for yourselves, but, to enter the quiz. And as such, to join, to actually join, just please take your phone right here. We all have them. We all have a smartphone. Please scan the code. It'll bring you to our photo booth. Tag us in there and share. Again, take notes for the online quiz. Visit our Instagram post, tag at least 10 friends. And once again, text MMC to 866-901-1914. These are some of the giveaway prizes. Apple just released the AirTags not too long ago. There's a HomePod Mini. There's a hydrated water bottle. And there's a Natalie Smart light bulb. All of these are like fire, y'all. All of these are really good gifts that we're giving away. And we always want to make sure that you feel the love that we're trying to give. But are you ready for the main event? Because I know y'all didn't come here to hear me speaking at all. So allow me to introduce our host, or rather our guest today. Her name is Itohan. She's an experienced software engineer with expertise in designing, developing, and testing software applications and systems. She has worked in various software teams and has various experience contributing to software projects in many different fields. She has actively contributed to open source projects, and she has a strong interest in distributed system and open software projects. She knows many different coding languages like Go, Python, Java, Linux, Git, just to name a few. She's a titan in the industry. She's going to talk to you all about infrastructure. So please, please, please make sure that you throw us some noise, throw up the comments. Please show this lovely woman some love. I present you Miss Ituan.
Hi, everyone. Happy International Women's Day to all you beautiful women. It's so great to be here.
And we're so lucky to have you, and thank you once again for joining us. But now I'm going to leave the rest to you.
Okay.
And I'll take myself off stage. See y'all in a little bit.
Okay, let's do this. Hi, everyone. So my name is Itohan, and today I'll be talking about infrastructure software engineering. I'm really happy to be talking about this because when you search Google for infrastructure software engineering, you probably would just see stuff on construction, not a lot. So this is really a great opportunity for me to share what it's about. But before we do that, let's talk a little about me. You may be wondering why this picture is here. This was my Halloween costume last year, Wakanda Forever. And I don't know, I just put it, I have no reason. But I was born and raised in Nigeria. I'm the youngest of 4. Tech has always fascinated me, but I'm not that person that knew I was going to be in tech. As a matter of fact, both parents are medical doctors, and my eldest 2 siblings are medical doctors. So I didn't really think of oh, what do I want to be? It just felt like I was going to be a doctor. And I remember people meeting me when I was younger and talking to my dad, and my dad would just say, oh yeah, she's going to be a medical doctor. So I didn't really see any other thing. And then as I got older, like in high school, I think in Nigeria is SS1, here it's 10th grade. I started really thinking, because in Nigeria, you don't choose you choose what you want to study when you're leaving school. So in 12th grade, you choose exactly what you're going to study. And in uni, that's what you're going to study. So I started really thinking about what my life would look like. Well, actually, 2 things happened. My immediate elder sister, she studied chemical engineering. And growing up, even if everyone was a doctor, she just always knew she did not want to be a doctor. She always said, I don't know what I'm going to study, but I'm not studying medicine. So just before me, she had like gone on to read chemical engineering. Seeing her read chemical engineering just made it seem like, oh yeah, there are options and medicine is not the only way. And also thinking about my life, what my life would look like as a medical doctor, I just did not see it. I'm that person where I see someone that has a cut and I'm like, oh, or I see blood and I'm like, oh my goodness. So as the more I thought about it, I couldn't really imagine myself being a medical doctor. And like I said, tech has always fascinated me. I knew, I remember when I was younger, I remember when cell phones just came to Nigeria and my dad had a cell phone and I was fiddling with it. I ended up spoiling it, but like it has always fascinated me. Things like playing games. My parents used to, we had like this huge monitor and my parents would like buy game CDs, and it used to be like learning games like 12th grade adventure, second grade adventure. And I just used to wonder how it worked. So I ended up going on to study electrical and electronic engineering because I wanted to pursue a career in telecommunication. Then that's what I thought I wanted to do. It was related to tech, and I just wondered how things worked. I wondered how I'm here, this phone doesn't have a wire. I just call and someone anywhere in the world can answer. So I really wanted to understand it, and that's why that's well, that I studied electrical engineering, and that kind of is how my journey into tech started. And I'll talk more about that as we go on. But that's just a little about me. Well, not a little, something long about me. So, what to expect from this presentation? I'm going to start off by sharing my journey into infrastructure software engineering. I'm going to say what exactly infrastructure software engineering is, talk about what an infra suite does, and then a day in my life. Finally, I'll give like pointers for your journey if you're interested in this field. So, my journey, how did I get here? Like I said, I studied electrical and electronic engineering for undergrad because I was really interested in telecommunication. Along the way, I found coding and networking. Then we started using smartphones. I had like the apps. I just always wondered how these things work. How do I just like go on Google, search anything, and it shows up? Like how? I found it so fascinating and intriguing, and I just wanted to be a part of that world. I tried learning how to code. It was electrical engineering, and then we didn't take a lot of coding classes, but I remember taking one or two classes in coding. They were very, very introductory classes. They were okay, but I knew it was something that I was interested in. So I tried learning how to code, tried different ways to learn how to code, and it just didn't stick. But then I knew about computer networking. I knew that even if coding didn't seem like it was working, I could learn computer networking and I'll still be in this field because computer networking had to do with how like different computers talk to each other, and learning about computer networking basically helps you to understand how the internet even works, which was something that fascinated me. So I learned about computer networking, even took like classes outside my undergrad classes just to learn about it. It was really interesting. But the thing with computer networking then, I mean, things have changed now, is that you have like these routers and they are like commands for how certain things should work. So if you want to like say connect these two computers with a router, you need to there's if you are using a Cisco router, there's like this exact command. If you are using a different router, there's this exact command. If you are setting up different network, there's this exact commands. So there was innovation and creativity in terms of like setting up the networks and knowing how you should isolate different parts of the network so they can't communicate with each other. But in terms of like the commands, there wasn't a lot of innovation. I wanted more, but then and I kept learning, trying to learn how to code, but it just wasn't sticking. After undergrad, I did an internship. So in Nigeria, we have this thing called a youth service. It's basically like it's like an internship, or some people teach in high schools, but it's something you do kind of like serving the country for a year, and you are paid a stipend, not a regular like salary. So there I wanted to like work because I was already into networking. I wanted to work in a networking company. So I remember applying to an internet service provider, and in my mind was like, yeah, I know networking. I'm going to do networking. And after I passed the interview, I remember speaking to like the lady that was doing the team matching, and she told me that I should keep an open mind and I should not just be so stuck up on networking, that she's going to place me in the research and development department of the company, and I should just like be open to learning. So there, it was we were doing like networking stuff, but just not the traditional networking. We were kind of using software to do networking. So it's something called software defined networking and network function virtualization. So we were looking into things like that, trying to research how we could change the company's network to use this like software defined networking and network function virtualization, just to make their services more flexible and provide more services. So there I had to code. Like this coding I had struggled with, I had to do it. And I tried new resources and I finally learned how to code. Like, and if you had told me then that I would be a software engineer, like that would be my career, I would have laughed because I had struggled so much. But I finally learned how to code. And looking back, I think that I just had not found what worked for me. So anyone trying to like learn how to code, if it's something you really want to do, but it just seems so difficult, I promise you it's really not that difficult. You just have not found what works for you. You need to find like the best resource, and everyone's learning style is different. Some people like just read and are able to implement it. Some people need to like keep going back. Some people need to work on projects. So you really need to understand yourself, but nothing is too difficult. So with regards to coding, learning how to code, you just need to find what works for you, but you can definitely do it. Um, so I did like my internship in Nigeria for 1 year, and after my internship, I honestly knew I was interested in computer science. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to continue to write code, continue to do software. And because of like my prior knowledge of networking, I wanted to combine the two. So I went on to do my master's. Like I said, I was already interested in computer science, but I guess maybe imposter syndrome, being scared. I was coming to do my master's here in America. I did my master's in electrical and computer engineering at Cornell. So coming to America, coming to a new country, completely different field, I was kind of scared. So I chose electrical and computer engineering because it was related to what I had done before. And like I said, I was just scared to just openly like I didn't think I would get into computer science. I felt if I get into computer science, I would struggle. So that's actually why I did electrical and computer engineering. But I figured that I would still get to code, still get to like follow the path I wanted, which luckily I did. After my master's in electrical and computer engineering, I got a job at Intel. I worked as a network software engineer. Then, still within Intel, I worked as a cloud software engineer. At Intel, I was doing a lot of open source work. So we were basically building this cloud software. At some point, I decided that I didn't just want to build it, like not see who's using it, not see how it's being used. I wanted to like write code that I see used in active environments. Like I wanted to write code being used in production. So I applied to other companies, and that's how I'm here today. Honestly, I didn't set out to be like, I didn't decide, oh, I'm going to be an infrastructure software engineer. I actually consider myself a software engineer first, and my interests change at different points, and I explore different opportunities. But my passion is coding, and it probably would be coding, probably be a software engineering role. But I consider myself a software engineer first. But that interest of like networking, software, then cloud, they all intersect, and that really has what has brought me to this role, my interest in wanting to see things run in like a live environment. That's a quick overview of how I got here. Of course, everyone's journey will be different. So now this is why we are all here. What the heck is infrastructure software engineering? What does it even mean? This is just an overview. Infrastructure software engineers involves like building and maintaining tools, services, and framework that other software engineering teams in the company use to smoothly develop and release their applications. So basically, an infrastructure software engineer is we're like the typical software engineer. We build like REST APIs, we build software services, but we don't build it for like consumer products. We don't build it for like products that you and I would use at home. We build like products that other software engineers use to make their work easier, make their work better. So our job is basically to make like other software engineering teams easier, or make the work of other software engineering teams easy. And I'll go more into this as I talk about what an infrastructure software engineer does. So what do infrastructure software engineers do? So this is just a list of like different roles. We get to do so many things. You can think of us as like a think tank. We are like the guys that help you get your products faster. So imagine like if so like I said, we build tools that make it easy for other software engineers to release their products, debug and test easily. So assuming we have like some services that help software engineers release their services to the cloud, because the cloud, AWS, it's its own ball game. So a software engineer like working on let's say Instagram, developing Instagram, they're like already trying to figure out Instagram. They don't want to like try to like go ahead and try to figure out AWS if that's what they are using, or figure out what to do on Google Cloud to build, to even get the service out to the world. They just want to build the service and hand it off. So we, depending on the organization, of course, there are different organizations. We provide like a service of, this is one thing that we can do. We can provide like a software above, say, a cloud that would make it easy for other software engineering teams to release their services. So if maybe with all the figuring out AWS and all, a regular software engineer would take, say, 1 month combining their regular development, because of us, maybe they can release the service in 1 week. So you should be thanking us because you get your services faster. We are the guys, we are like the back end behind the back end. I think our role is very important. So we build and design software services, we maintain. So, like I said, it's a typical software engineering role, which in some cases it may, if we're like designing new software services, or if there's like a new feature, or we're fixing a bug, we have to write like design documents. We have to like write design documents. We have to come up with designs. And a design is basically something that talks about how everything, what would be done to get something to work, how everything will fit together. So it may involve like talking about how the database will communicate with, say, a load balancer, will communicate with, say, the actual service you are using. We talk about, okay, I'm building the service. Where am I going to release it to? How many replicas do we need to ensure reliability? We have to talk about what we are going to do to get the service to be available. So things like that, which is, I think, what many software engineers get to do. We do logging and metrics. So we need to be able to monitor our services. We need to know, okay, if a service fails, we need to be able to see like the logs to know what is going on. So we do logging and metrics. We do metrics to see how our services are doing, how many errors we are getting, what is failing. So we may work on that. Many infrastructure software engineers do on-call rotations. So on-call rotations is basically just maybe for a week, depending on the company, maybe for a week, you're responsible for like watching that some of your team services and seeing, okay, if anything is wrong, you're responsible for fixing it, and you observe the metrics. Another thing is, because many times other software engineers would be using the services and the software provided by infrastructure software engineers, we have to offer support to them as well. So say they are trying to use our service but something fails, we have to work with them in order to figure out what is failing or to see what they are doing wrong, or maybe we have a bug, or if they're trying to onboard to our service and the documentation is not clear, we need to work with them on that. And that brings me to one other thing that we do. We of course we write technical documentation because we work on services, so we need to write like technical documentation on how our services work. Sometimes some people just prefer to write the technical documentations by themselves instead of explaining it to like a technical writer. So it really depends on the company process and the people too. Another thing, I've talked about like helping software engineers to release their services to the cloud. We have like a continuous integration and continuous delivery, and that is just like continuous testing. So if a service is released, we want to do like automatic unit test, and we want to be able to test it automatically in different environments, say like dev environment, testing environment, before it's released to like production. But we don't want like other people to worry about having to do this individually. So we have like services that will enable them to do this automatically. So I think like infrastructure software engineers, sometimes our work is kind of like a mix between software engineering and DevOps. So it's not all DevOps, it's pure software engineering because we write full code, we write APIs, there are even sometimes there may be front end people depending on like the company and the team. If they want like their service to have like a front end for the other users using it to interact with, there may be a front end service. We write like services that will have to like write to the database or read from the database. The main thing is that we just do it for like people within the team. So offering like making other people within the company more productive. But we also do like DevOps, which is what I'm talking about, like metrics, supporting other engineers, enabling continuous delivery, and in continuous integration and delivery, which is, I think, to an extent, is some DevOps work. So I've talked about what an infrastructure software engineer does, like at a high level. But I'm sure you may be wondering, okay, if I become an infrastructure software engineer, what would a day in my life look like? And that's really what I want to say. Every software engineer's life is different. Every day is different. But I'll say the average day starts with like Scrum meetings, provide updates like what did I do yesterday? What am I going to do today? Am I blocked? What do I need help with? We work on teams, of course, so you may have to review like code of other people. If you're like the code reviewer for like a service someone is working on, you have to review that, provide feedback. And of course, if you're working on a new feature, you have to write code, and quite a lot of my day is spent writing code. If you're working on a new feature, a new service, you have to write design documents for new services. So I feel like a big requirement is being able to communicate what you are thinking. It's not enough to just like, okay, I know what to do and then just go write the code. You need to be able to like write on paper exactly what you're thinking, how you're going to do it, and why that's the best way to do it. Or if you have like different ideas, write the different ideas, write what you think is the best way, what you recommend, and have other people listen, other people read and provide feedback. So one thing is that you really, really need to learn to take like feedback, constructive criticism, and no, it's not about you. We have a job to get done. So just listen and understand why people are providing that feedback. If you don't agree, talk to them, explain your own point of view. So as a software engineer, as an infrastructure software engineer, communication is really required because you really need to talk to people, listen, take it in, think about it, and then speak as well. I already talked about like on call rotation. We You need to be able to understand the services your team provides, and also talk to like other software engineers. So like I said, other software engineers on the team are our clients. So we need to be able to talk to them. We need to explain to them. Just imagine like yourself calling just imagine you calling a customer support agent. So to an extent, we can be customer support, but to other software engineers on the team. So we need to be able to really be patient. And sometimes, oh Lord, you need patience. You really need to be patient and explain what's going on, why something is failing to someone, how to fix it. And you need to continuously work on your documentation, because sometimes it's annoying because you feel like, oh my, why are you asking this? It's written there, it's very clear. But the truth is, if you're not communicating well, you feel you've communicated well, but if they don't understand, then you've not done a good job. So you really need to keep working on that. Like if someone is not understanding your document, something you've written, you need to go back and think of how you can write it in a clearer way so that they can really follow. So you need to do a lot of communication. I talked about you need to observe service metrics, and when issues happen, you need to debug issues. So if a service fails, you need to look at the logs, look at the metrics, try to figure out when it happened, go back into the code, try to figure out where that error is coming from. And depending on how big it is, if it's a small error, you may be able to just like write one line of code. But if it's a big error, you may need to come up with a design for why that thing is happening and even how to fix it. And yeah, I think I went over every other thing. So that's what a day in my life looks like. It's a mix of everything. I feel like my work is never done. I feel like I'm constantly being pulled in different directions, but I love that I get to learn a lot. I love like the innovation that goes on. You just see so many people thinking, and you yourself get to think of ways to improve things, think of ways to make things better. And so I really like that I get to do that. And that's like a big thing, I think, not just with infrastructure software engineering. If I'm being honest, I think that's a big thing with software engineering as a whole. And that's why I'm really passionate about it. I think it's something that you have an issue, you could think about it and see, oh, wait, I can build a solution to that. And it's just amazing. So, if you're interested in this field, what can you do? What can someone entering in this space do? I would say the most important thing is to learn a programming language. And honestly, I think as an entry level person, that's really all you need. You need to learn a programming language in this space. And I would say this space is kind of related to cloud and infrastructures and networking as well. Again, depending on the organization, in today's world, most companies will be running their services in the cloud. So an infrastructure software engineer would probably be using the cloud. So many services I've seen, or many companies I've seen in this field, they maybe will be using Python or using Java or using Go. So if you don't know a programming language and you are interested in this field, I would recommend one of these three languages. But of course, we know that with programming, if you know how to code, you can easily pick up another language. So I wouldn't like say it's a hard requirement, but you definitely should learn how to code. Of course, we always want to distinguish ourselves. So yes, learning how to code, I would say, is enough to get into this field. But what can set you apart? Um, you would definitely eventually need to learn like Linux operating system and how to use the CLI. Most times you would like interact with the Linux operating system for like releasing services, maybe like Kubernetes services, debugging. So I would say you definitely need to learn how to use a Linux CLI. You need to learn about cloud technologies. We work a lot with the cloud, like I said. So you need to learn about cloud technologies, maybe learn about AWS, how things work, some different services in AWS. you need to learn about distributed systems. In today's world, like most companies you would see, like Google is all over the world, Netflix is all over the world. So a service is not going to be running in just one place. For it to be all over the world and for it to be like running at a good speed, like for it to be manageable. Because people, if you're watching Netflix, someone in India watching Netflix, their data center or the location serving them is not here. It's probably closer to them. That helps to reduce latency. So to help people have to help customers have a better user experience, many companies have distributed systems. So if you're interested in this field, I definitely recommend like learning about distributed systems. Containers and container orchestration technologies are at the core of the cloud. You need to learn about that. But again, this is just to set yourself apart, show that really you're interested in this field and this is what you're doing. But I feel like the most important thing is learning a programming language and being comfortable with it. And then networking and reading blog articles. So I really like just even if you're not talking to people, just following them, seeing what they're posting on LinkedIn, on Twitter, just reading about it. You learn so much from people. So if you see people in this field, definitely follow them and network with them as best you can. Something else, you're interested in this field, even if you're not ready to apply, you could go online, go to companies you may be interested in, check out job postings on this field and see what are the requirements, and that will definitely help you just prepare for a career in this field. Just to touch on programming again, I did mention earlier that I struggled a bit with learning how to code. One thing I would recommend if you're learning how to code is working on a side project, not just like doing the course and just doing like what the course asks of you, but also like reading books and different things. So you should also like have a side project, just because when you have a side project, you're not just doing what the course says, you're really thinking about it. It forces you to like try to apply what you understand. So if you're learning how to code, learning to figure things out, I recommend figuring out a project to work on. And you could just like search online like beginner friendly Python projects or beginner friendly Java projects, and they may just list like, say, write a banking tool, and then you just work on it and figure out how to do it. So that's something that could be very helpful for anyone learning how to code. And that's it for me. I'll take questions now, and if you have questions later, definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn, and when I have time, I'll respond to you. Thank you everyone for listening to this. It was really my pleasure talking to you.
Ooh. Well, that was very powerful stuff. So first off, let me get you a round of applause because you gave us a lot of information. You gave us a lot of insight, not only to, what you do and how you do it, but also insight to your journey that came from Nigeria to here. So for that, we're very thankful. So once again, throw it up in the comments for her. She did a lot of great today. And so before we lead into the questions, because the audience has asked some very good ones, this is one that I want to start this off because this is International Women's Day. And we know that's a celebration of women of, many different races, ethnicities, and everything. So what I would like to know is, how do you celebrate yourself not only on this day, but throughout the whole year? How do you become your biggest fan and hype yourself up to show people that, you are doing the damn thing and doing it well?
Ah, good question. I like that question. I think, first of all, in everything I do, I tell myself I need to do my best. And if I'm doing my best, then like even if I feel like I'm struggling, I ask myself, am I doing my best? Am I doing my absolute best? And if I am, that's good enough. I know I'm important, so I need to take time for myself. I need to balance like my work and my life. I need to spend time with people that I love. I need to take time to just rest and prioritize myself. And we have this negative voice in our head, or I have this negative voice in my head that keeps saying I'm not enough or I'm not good enough. But I'm really, really learning to be more intentional about just saying no, I can do this, I'm good enough, and I'm going to keep trying my best. So Celebrating myself and just keep doing the best I can everywhere, and taking time for my own mental health, taking time to rest and knowing that I'm important, and also going ahead to do things that make me happy. So spend time with my loved ones, spend time traveling, working out, all that good stuff.
And that's fantastic right there. And so that kind of leads into, or rather segues into my next question. How would you like the community to continue support and celebrate women throughout all these spaces throughout the year? Because it's one thing to celebrate yourself, but sometimes that outside support really pushes you over the edge when you know people are backing you in your corner.
So I would say it depends on what every woman needs is different.
Hmm.
But I'm a strong believer that women can do whatever they set their minds to. And not that this is important, but I really do not believe in gender roles. So I really believe that if you decide to do something, you can. So one thing, it depends, what does the woman need?
Hmm.
So if it's like advice, if she's struggling with imposter syndrome, I can definitely help them. um I mean, I feel like being part of something like this on International Women's Day is also contributing to women's helping women. And if recently I was part of like a different conversation on Instagram Live called Lead Her, which is just like leading, talking about women in tech and how to get into this field. So definitely continuing to be part of this space, continuing to be a voice here, showing people that if I can do it, you can definitely do it. And cheering other women on. I think cheering other women on is important. Not like, because I mean, sometimes you see other women like just being against each other. But when I see a woman doing the stuff, I like celebrate her because it's not easy. So,
Well, thank you for that. That's very much appreciated. And I want everyone in the audience, be taking notes because these are things that you can do for the women in your life, regardless of what gender you are. Let's continue to uplift and support our women. But now in the comments, Ms. Nadia Nichols had a very good question. And she asked, what are some resources you recommend to learn how to code?
it depends on if you're a book person or if you're a video person. For books, like I said, I struggled, but the book that I find, and when I was in Nigeria, the company I worked with, the manager recommended learn Python for kids, and it
Mm-hmm.
was really helpful. But the book, so Python for kids is a book,
Mm-hmm.
and another book, the book that really made it stick for me was Learn Python the hard way. I know it's like counter, like it's, yeah, but learn Python the hard way. It just worked. I don't know, maybe. And I talked about the fact that you need to work on project. So I feel like learn Python the hard way forces you to do things yourself. Um, so apart from learn Python the hard way, Java, anything that has, if you want to learn anything, any book that has head first, any book, head first Java, head first object oriented programming, you are going to just love it. It's a technical book, but it's really, really good. So head first. And then on Coursera, there are a lot of free courses,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I can send you links to some I've tried, but nothing comes. I can't remember like the name of anyone right now, but
Oh,
on
yes.
Coursera there are a lot of free courses, and then on YouTube as well. On
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, like sometimes you could see like a technical person. What I usually do is go to their channel and then click their playlist. And many of them, like they may have a playlist specifically for Python, and then it's just like goes like each video is just like it's basically like a full-on tutorial on YouTube if you go through the playlist.
Oh, very good. See, guys, she's giving you a whole bunch of information. She gave you some books to read. She gave you some YouTube channels, and she even suggested Coursera. Please take all these resources. So then, another question that I've kind of seen, or rather, what I want to know is, I've seen that you work as a network software engineer, a cloud software engineer, and now an infrastructure software engineer. So, can you tell us like the bridge between them, how they one connect to the other, till you finally got into infrastructure, or at least elaborate a little bit more into it?
Okay, so for each of them, an important part is coding. Like I said, you need to learn how to code. But as a network software engineer, I was working on building like I talked about software defined networking. So traditional networking is to just be like the routers, and then you just have like certain commands. But with software defined networking, it was like talking about using software to do things that routers traditionally do. So you may just have a regular computer, a Linux box, acting as a router, and we needed like to write code to do that. So for that, there was like, we were writing code, but you needed like a knowledge of networking, how
Mm,
computer networking works, like what happens when this IP address is trying to talk to this IP address. What does a router typically do?
mm,
So that's like, it was basically trying to do networking with regular code
mm,
on a regular Linux machine. So that's how that's like connected. I don't know if I helped. But so for cloud software, it was then like building software that is used for the cloud. So I talked about learning container orchestration technology, learning about containers and what those things do. They're just like so a container is like, it's kind of like a lightweight, I don't you may know virtual machines, but it's kind of like a lightweight computer running within your computer, like an isolated thing.
mm,
So if you have like this isolated thing, and say the isolated thing is also meant to like talk outside its so you have like, because if you have a computer now and it's meant to talk to other computers, you need like a network, right? So
mm,
if you have like a container running within the cloud, it needs to be able to talk to other containers, or it needs to be able to talk to like other computers. It's basically like an isolated space.
mm,
To be able to talk to other things, it's also networking. To be able to talk to the actual host that it's running on, it's networking. So that kind of helped my knowledge, but then it was writing code, but then I needed my networking knowledge.
mm,
Yeah. And then working on the cloud, I talked about working on Kubernetes. Working on infrastructure software,
mm,
it depends on your role, but here I haven't used a lot of actual networking knowledge, but I have used a lot of Kubernetes, a lot of container, because as an infrastructure software engineer in today's world, you're going to need to do a lot of things with the cloud.
mm,
You're going to need to like write services that run on the cloud. So you need like the container knowledge. So that's actually how the container knowledge relates to like network software and cloud software. But I think overall, like the most important thing is knowing how to code.
So it all comes back to coding, all comes back to software engineering. So I
Yeah.
can see that's the foundation piece that y'all need. Pick a
Mhm,
language, you learn it, and then begin your journey.
mhm, mhm.
And so then I guess then a follow-up question for that would be like, so you've been in, even though this is all based in coding, all based in software engineering, you've had very different job titles, right? Very different places. And as we know, when people get into tech, they like to pivot. So how
Mhm.
did you go about building like your portfolio for each of these roles? And you don't have to get super specific for each one, but just giving the audience a general idea of what they should be doing or looking for as they begin their own tech journey and career pivots and try to go up that ladder.
So it's some people even say have like a resume for different roles you're interested in.
Oh yeah.
So if you have like a role you're interested in, you could think about what you've worked on, like really be able to think about what you've worked on and relate it to this current role.
Mhm,
Like for example, like applying to an infrastructure software engineering role, I had worked with like Kubernetes a lot. I hadn't worked in production, but I had worked like open source, worked with Kubernetes and container technology a lot.
mhm,
I had worked in Linux environment a lot. I talked about the fact that it's important. I had worked with Linux a lot. So trying to highlight those
mhm,
skills is important. And then if you have time, definitely like work on personal projects that would use the skill.
mhm,
So many cloud providers would offer like say a free tier. So you can like think about, okay, working on a project after, because what containers do, containers really help you run your software. So how about you build a simple software, say I don't know why it's banking platform coming to my head today, but let's say you build like a banking platform. rather than just like running it on your laptop and saying, oh, it works. Try thinking, okay, AWS has this free tier. How can I get it to run in AWS and access it like from my laptop?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, being able to do something like that, you can showcase it because then you've worked with the cloud, then you've worked with container technologies, then you've probably worked with like Linux, and then you've also built like a whole banking platform. So working, I would say working on like simple things that help with like showcase distributed systems will definitely help build a portfolio if you're not like already in this space.
Mm-hmm. See, y'all, she's giving you a very good project to work on, and it sounds like it teaches you a little of every different skill. So please take note. Jasmine, who just joined us, she actually wanted to know, how was your interview process like?
So I'm sure we all know, and I'm going to be honest, software engineering interviews are a struggle. They are hard. Like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Software engineering interviews are hard. So it was hard. It was definitely hard, and it was a long process. So for most companies, I would say software engineering interviews will involve like your typical like recruiter screen, which is not really a big deal. And then after that, you have a phone screen, a technical phone screen, or it may be a technical challenge where they give you like a website like HackerRank. Or in some cases, it may be both. So, and then in those, you need to like learn lead code, you need to learn data structures and algorithms. And when you finally learn data structures and algorithms, you need to do a lot of practice on lead code because many of these companies ask like a lead code style question. So if you've not heard of lead code is just a website with like programming problems. And there are even like YouTubers that do videos just solving the question. So you really need to get familiar with lead code.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, like, if you're successful in, and this, I'm just giving like a short process, like the companies that have like a three-stage process. If you're successful with like the technical phone screen, you may have like the on-site,
Mm-hmm.
and the on-site has a lot of lead code style questions, which are like the technical phone screens I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like basically you need to write the code, explain before you start writing the code, you need to explain how what you are going to do. So
Mm-hmm.
unlike I think many software engineers just like writing the code and moving on. We don't like talking about it. But in interviews you have to explain what you are doing and why you are doing it.
And I think that's probably the most difficult thing about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And then so you may have a lot of that. You may have like two or three kind of lead code style questions in your on site. And then depending on your level, they tend to ask like system design questions. And system design questions could be like how would you design Uber, or how would you design Twitter? And that looks like just talking about, you need to start from like say talking about like storage estimations, which is like how much like disk space you would use. You need to talk about memory estimations. You need to talk about things like availability, which is if any user wants to access your service, they can. You need to talk about like fault tolerance, like say a server fails, how would other users still be able to access my service? If you're probably using a database like something like Twitter, where we know it saves tweets, they're going to be using like a database. You need to talk about like replication, because if a database fails, we don't want users to to lose all their information. And then we need to talk a lot about behavioral.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the main thing. I think it depends on the person, but that's like what I find difficult. For me, behavioral is easy, but you have like behavioral questions like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
strength, weakness, tell me about a time, all that. So that's what the interview process looks like. It's hard. It's hard, but if it's something you're interested in, it's definitely worth it. So I really don't want this to discourage anybody.
Well, anything that's worth having in life is worth working for. And I think you highlighted that so much just now. But this kind of brings me back to something you said earlier in your presentation, when we were talking about communication, right?
Mhm.
You said communication is very important for your job, and as we can also say, it's very important for the interview process because we need to see how we can communicate our ideas across so that they understand it. So
Mhm.
then, tell me, what would you consider some of the green flags, or rather, how to be a real effective communicator, not only through the interview process but also in the day in your job as well?
Wow. So I feel like this is something I'm still struggling with, but and many times I tend to just go ahead and do what I'm doing. But for example, you're working on something, people want updates. Maybe someone decides like they have someone is waiting for you, or
Mhm.
someone wants to know what you're working on. So rather than just saying, oh, I'm just going to work on it and then I'll let them, and it depends on the team, but rather than just saying I'm going to work on it and then I'll let them know, it's some people like to have updates. And you need to understand where you are. So some people like to have updates like, okay, this is the progress I've made. I know you're waiting, but I will do this. And then I would say really being able to listen to feedback
Mhm.
and really learning that it's not about you, it's just about the work, and really thinking about the feedback and thinking about what you can take. Of course, some things are not true, but if something is not true and you've thought about it, you can go back to the person and communicate in a respectful way why you don't agree. So being able to take feedback and apply it or think about it at least is important. And you need to be able to explain what you are doing, because you know how they say it, if you can explain it, do you really know it? So you really need to explain, be able to explain what you are doing to anybody.
Of course, of course. So then, I guess for the final questions, that I wanted to know, because you also brought this throughout your presentation, you talked about imposter syndrome, right? And I believe
Mhm.
everyone knows what imposter syndrome is. We all experience it. So, what are some ways that you combat that just in your life in general, whether that's on the job, outside the job? How do you do it?
So for one, I think about all the things I've done and all the things I've achieved, and I think about times where I had imposter syndrome, but I succeeded.
Mhm.
When I moved here from Nigeria, I would say, and then I was in Cornell, and I struggled. Like I feel like that's the time where I really like experienced imposter syndrome. I felt like, oh my gosh, am I going to just like waste my dad's money? Am I going to fail? So thinking about times like that and thinking that I made it, I succeeded, definitely helps. Um, I'm Christian, so there are a lot of Bible verses I like to remind myself. I feel like in the Bible has like a lot of verses that talk about the fact that you can do it. So as a Christian, that helps me. And just like reminding myself that they like, okay, I'm here and I'm doing the job. I've not been fired yet. Yeah, I'm doing the job. I haven't been fired yet. So I must be good enough to be here. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so, as the Bible says, you can do anything through Christ who strengthens you. And I know that's a big part of your faith. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, very, very, very good. So then I just want to thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. You've been more than helpful. You have taught me so much about a sector I have very little knowledge of. And I
Wow.
think everyone in the audience really appreciates you taking the time to come in and really, share all this information with you. You could have been doing anything on this day, but you chose to spend it with us. And for that, I'm going to say I really do thank you and appreciate you for that. And from everyone in MMC and everyone in the audience, I'm sure they feel the same way.
Thank you. I'm so glad I was here. And I'm so glad I got to speak on International Women's Day. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, please throw it up in the comments again one more time for Miss Itohan. Let's go. Come on. All right. So thank you all for just taking your time out. Again, just like I told her, y'all could have been doing anything else on this day, but y'all chose to spend it with us. And time is one of the many resources we can never get back. So please, thank you for choosing to give us your time. Thank you for choosing to give us your attention. Tomorrow, we have Javante, who's going to be presented with Ms. Naya. And so we really want y'all to come in, show some support. Remember, we got 2 weeks worth of events, and I'm so happy to be a part of this. I hope to see y'all all there. Good night, everybody.